The toothbrush. Melvin's toothbrush had long crossed the threshold of simple wear and tear. It had transformed into a relic of his neglect. After years of faithful, yet misguided service, its bristles were frayed and bent at awkward angles that seemed almost desperate. He had ignored the obvious signs that his dental hygiene routine was severely lacking. For Melvin, taking care of his teeth had never been a priority, a fact that now loomed ominously over him. The repercussions of his inaction were crystal clear. Sharp, throbbing pain shot through his mouth with every bite of food, a constant reminder of what he had failed to do. As he winced and stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of shame. His once bright smile now bore gaps where teeth used to stand proudly, like missing bricks from a wall. It was undeniable. Something had to change. It had been years since Melvin last set foot in a dentist's office, making the thought of an appointment seem like a distant memory. He tried to recall that final visit with reluctant clarity. He remembered the hygienist's disapproving gaze as she pointed out the state of his oral health. She had handed him pamphlets filled with information about proper dental care, but he had scoffed at them. He didn't want to be lectured. He deemed the materials unnecessary and discarded them without a second thought. Now those choices haunted him like shadows in the night. A deep-rooted fear of judgment loomed over him, a barrier that kept him from seeking help. What would the dentist and staff say about him? Would they laugh at his condition? Would they look at him with pity? These questions gnawed at him, echoing the decay that was manifesting in his mouth. As days turned into weeks, Melvin's situation deteriorated. He could feel the heavy weight of his decisions pressing down on him, suffocating him little by little. Friends began to take notice of his physical state. "Are you okay?" they would ask, concern evident in their voices, but he brushed off their inquiries with forced laughter. "Just a little tired," he'd reply, avoiding their worried stares and attempting to mask his reality. Yet, the truth was undeniable and cut deep. He felt terrified. The fear that enveloped him was not just about the potential loss of teeth, but of losing a piece of himself. Each fallen tooth represented a fragment of his identity slipping away into nothingness. One evening, as he stood in front of the bathroom mirror, Melvin felt as though he stood at a crossroads. The reflection staring back at him seemed foreign, almost like a shadow of the man he once was, vibrant and full of life. He clenched his fists tightly, battling against the despair that threatened to overwhelm him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of contemplation, he made the pivotal decision to take action. That night, Melvin picked up the phone with trembling hands and dialed the dentist's office, his heart racing as he heard the ringing tone. When the receptionist answered with a cheerful voice, Melvin could hardly carry the weight of shame that pressed against him. "I need an appointment," he managed to whisper, the words barely escaping his lips. Days crept by as the appointment loomed ever closer. Anxiety bubbled within him like a simmering pot, filling him with thoughts of dread. What if they refused to treat him? What if they looked at his mouth and said it was too late? Melvin could hardly keep still. He paced his small apartment, reflecting on the lives he could have led and the moments he had squandered. Regret washed over him like a tidal wave, forcing him to confront the reality that he could have changed his habits long ago. Instead, he chose to ignore the warning signs and now faced a reckoning that he could no longer avoid. At last, the day of the appointment arrived, and Melvin found himself in the waiting room, heart pounding with each beat. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and every tick of the clock felt like a countdown to an uncertain fate. When his name was finally called, he stood up slowly, his feet feeling as though they were weighed down with bricks. As he entered the exam room, dread filled the air, making it hard for him to breathe. The dentist looked at him, and in that moment, Melvin felt painfully exposed. However, when the dentist smiled and said, "Let's see what we're working with," a spark of hope ignited within him. It hit him then. This was his chance. No more hiding, no more excuses. This could be the beginning of a new chapter in his life or the end of the neglect that had consumed him for too long.